Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. We are from Group 4 of AS1203G. Today we want to present about respiratory system. Now let's get started with introduction. What is the respiratory system? The organs and structures that work together to facilitate breathing. It is responsible for taking in oxygen from the air, transporting it into the bloodstream, and removing carbon dioxide, a waste product produced by cell during metabolism. The main components of the respiratory system include the lungs, areas like the trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles, and the diaphragm, which is had control the process of inhalation and exhalation.
So, how do physiological adaptations of the respiratory system vary during exercise or physical activity, particularly in athletes experiencing conditions such as exercise induced asthma, respiratory muscle fatigue, and also, or altitude training adaptations?
Respiratory adaptation athletes with exercise-induced asthma. Exercise-induced asthma (EIA) occurs when vigorous exercise triggers narrowing of the airways, leading to wheezing, coughing, and shortness of breath. This can result from factors like cold air, dry air, or increased ventilation during intense exercise. Athletes with exercise-induced asthma (EIA) experience unique respiratory adaptation during training and competition. Despite the challenge posed by EIA, many can achieve high levels of performance through proper management and conditioning. Here are some key aspects of respiratory adaptation in these athletes. Okay, for the first one, improve lung function. Regular training increase lung capacity and oxygen uptake. Next, bronchodilation. Exercise can enhance airway relaxation, reduce asthma symptoms. Then, increase symptom tolerance. Athletes learn to manage asthma symptoms during exercise. Last but not least, breathing techniques. Athletes develop better technique to manage airflow and prevent attack.
Second, respiratory muscle fatigue. What is respiratory muscle fatigue? Respiratory muscle fatigue is a condition in which the muscle responsible for breathing, primarily the diaphragm and intercostal muscle, become fatigued and unable to maintain the necessary level of ventilation. Okay, let's talk about the adaptation of the respiratory system when respiratory muscle fatigue occurs. The first thing is increased ventilation. Minute ventilation increase significantly to meet the oxygen demand. After that, the second thing that is done for adaptation is exhale gas exchange efficiently. Capillary dilation in the lung maximizes the surface area, oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. Pulmonary diffusion capacity increase due to higher blood flow and pressure. The third adaptation is requirement of respiratory muscle. The diaphragm, intercostal muscle, and accessory respiratory muscle become more active. Finally, the fourth adaptation is distribution of blood flow. Blood flow is prioritized toward active muscle and respiratory muscle, and reducing perfusion to less active organs.
Next, altitude training. What is altitude training? High altitude training is the practice of training at high elevation. In sports, high altitude typically means at least 7,000 to 8,000 feet above sea level. At this elevation, there is less oxygen in the air. Your workout will feel more difficult and you will get tired more quickly. The idea is that high altitude training forces your body to adapt to the lack of oxygen. In turn, this could improve your performance when you compete at sea level. So, athletes who commonly practice high altitude training include runners, cyclists, mountain bikers, cross-country skiers, and swimmers. Let's discuss the key adaptation. First, increased red blood cell production. The primary response to an altitude is an increase in erythropoiesis, which is the production of red blood cell in the bone marrow. Increased erythropoiesis leads to an increase in red blood cell mass, enhancing the blood's oxygen carrying capacity. Hypoxia stimulates the production of erythropoietin, a hormone that promotes the proliferation and maturation of red blood cell precursors. Secondly, enhanced oxygen extraction. The oxygen dissociation curve is a graphical representation that shows how hemoglobin, a protein in red blood cells, release and pick up oxygen depending on oxygen levels in the blood. At high altitude, there is a shift in the oxygen dissociation curve, facilitating enhanced oxygen unloading in the tissue. This occurs due to increased levels of 2,3-diphosphoglycerate 2,3-DPG, a molecule that decreases hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen, allowing it to be released more readily to the tissue. Thirdly, increased capillarization. Your body responds to altitude by increasing the density of capillaries in the muscle and other tissues. This process, known as capillarization, improves oxygen diffusion and facilitates the delivery of oxygen to the working muscle, enhancing your aerobic capacity. And last but not least, increase myoglobin production. Myoglobin, a protein that binds oxygen in muscle cells, is upregulated in response to chronic hypoxia, low level of oxygen. Studies have found that this adaptation improves oxygen transport within the muscle, enhancing their endurance capacity.
For the last question is, what strategies can be discussed to optimize respiratory function for improved performance in such scenarios?
For exercise-induced asthma, the first one is use of medication. Athletes with EIA should have a prescribed bronchodilator available before and during exercise to prevent symptoms. For the second one is warm up and cool down routine. Gradual warm up and cool down help minimize the shock of respiratory system and reduce the risk of airway constriction. For the last one is breathing techniques. Controlled nasal breathing can help reduce the effect of hyperventilation and minimize the chance of triggering asthma.
Here is 3 strategies to optimize respiratory muscle fatigue. First, respiratory muscle training. Respiratory muscle training can be defined as a technique that aims to improve the function of the respiratory muscle, such as the diaphragm and intercostal muscle through specific exercise. Respiratory muscle training include inspiratory muscle training and expiratory muscle training. Second, nutritional support. For example, ensure a balanced diet with adequate energy, protein, and micronutrients such as magnesium and potassium for muscle function. It will prevent muscle cramps and optimize endurance. The third one is physical activity and endurance training. For example, aerobic exercise such as walking, cycling, or swimming to improve overall respiratory capacity. It will reduce strain on respiratory muscle during everyday activity. We also have other examples such as strength training to improve accessory muscle strength and complementing respiratory muscle. And the other example is specific posture, which is positions like forward leaning or tripod position can offload respiratory muscle.
Okay, for altitude training, there are 3 strategies. First, intermittent hypoxic training (IHT). Athletes train using equipment like hypoxic mask or chamber to stimulate high altitude conditions. Second, breathing exercise and diaphragmatic training. Athletes can engage in exercise such as deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, or controlled breathing technique like the Buteyko method. Last, respiratory muscle training (RMT). Athletes can use specialized devices such as inspiratory muscle training (IMT) device, or they can perform exercise such as diaphragmatic breathing, pursed lip breathing, and controlled inhalation-exhalation techniques.
Based on our research, exercise-induced asthma can be reduced by inducing a refractory period by performing moderate physical warm-ups before exercising. This essentially prepares the lungs for exercise by reducing bronchoconstriction over the next 2 hours. Furthermore, dietary supplements like omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin C might be beneficial. In general, maintaining a healthy body weight can and consistent exercise routine can help with improving exercise-induced asthma. In addition, addressing respiratory muscles probably contributes to difficulties some patients have with weaning mechanical ventilations, the symptoms of exercise intolerance, and dyspnea in chronic lung diseases. Therapy depends on reduction in the required level of respiratory effort, of an improvement in respiratory muscle strength and endurance. Lastly, for altitude training adaptations, focus on hydration, nutrition, physical conditioning, and breathing techniques. And that is the end of our presentation on the respiratory system. Thank you for watching until the end and have a nice day.